Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today, I've got some truly captivating AITA stories lined up for you, each one filled with drama, emotion, and those tricky moral dilemmas we all secretly love dissecting. If you enjoy hearing about these real-life situations, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a story. Story 1. Am I the asshole if I gave my best friend's kids different life-changing amounts of money? I'm 37, and not long ago, I came into a truly life-changing amount of money. I haven't told my best friend yet, but my plan is to gift her 2 children, her 12-year-old daughter and 2-year-old son, each a substantial sum in an irrevocable trust. Here's where it gets tricky. I want to give the 12-year-old $2.5 million and the 2-year-old $1.5 million. Why the difference? I've been deeply involved in the 12-year-old's life since she was little. She spends every school vacation with me, calls me mom, and in my heart, there's no difference between her and my own kids. She's had a rough start. Abuse in her early years, ongoing mental health struggles, and a therapist who says she'll likely need lifelong therapy. Her biological father passed away from an overdose, leaving her without that parental support. The 2-year-old's life is different. He has a present father, my friend's current partner who serves in the military. He's well cared for, with plenty of clothes, toys, and a stable home. I'm not saying one child matters more, but the truth is the older girl's path ahead looks a lot more challenging. And I want to ensure she's financially supported in ways that could change her future. Part of this comes from my own childhood. I was the black sheep of my family, given fewer opportunities than my siblings. That shaped my life in ways I still feel today. Looking at my friend's daughter, I see echoes of my own struggles. While I can't rewrite her story, I can give her resources to soften what's coming. But I can't ignore the possible fallout. My best friend treats her kids equally. Of course she does, they're both her children. If she learns I'm giving one significantly more money than the other, will she think I'm playing favorites? That I love the little boy less? That's not true at all. My love for him is real, but my investment in the 12-year-old's life is simply deeper, and my instinct to protect her is stronger. This gift is coming entirely from my own free will. It's not an inheritance or something anyone else has a say in. I believe money is a tool, and I want to use it to help in the way I feel is most needed. But I can't shake the anxiety over how this might be received. If my friend reacts badly, it could damage our relationship. If I split the money equally, I'd be ignoring what my heart, and frankly my conscience, tells me is the right thing to do. I keep circling back to the fact that this isn't about fairness in a mathematical sense. It's about giving each child what I think will help them most in life. Still, I imagine my friend's face when I tell her the numbers. Will she think I'm undermining her parenting? Will she feel judged about how her kids are doing? Will she see this as me favoring one over the other? The last thing I want is to hurt her or create resentment between her children. It's such a fine line between doing what you believe is best and avoiding unnecessary harm. But every time I try to picture splitting the money evenly, I feel like I'd be abandoning the 12-year-old in a way I can't stomach. This is my chance to make a real difference for her. That's where I'm stuck, between my loyalty to my friend and my fierce desire to protect this girl who feels like my own. I know I can't control her reaction, but the fear of causing pain is making me hesitate. That brings us to our next dilemma. Am I the asshole for doing this? Story 2. Am I the asshole for choosing my best friend as my best man instead of my stepbrother? I'm 24, getting married to my fiancé in just 2 weeks. And I thought picking my best man would be an easy decision. Turns out, not so much. My stepbrother Pete, who's 25, is upset, actually furious, that I chose my best friend Charles as my best man instead of him. Here's the thing, Pete and I aren't close, at all. We never lived together growing up. I lived with my mom and he lived with my dad and stepmom. We went to different schools, had different friends, and barely interacted except during my visits to my dad's place. And even then, Pete rarely left his room. In the last 6 months alone, I've probably spoken to him fewer than 5 times. It's not like I didn't try. I used to invite him to hang out, call him to catch up, and try to build some kind of brotherly bond, but he either ignored me or turned me down every time. Eventually, I stopped trying. It was clear he wasn't interested. Charles, on the other hand, is practically family. We've been friends for over 11 years, used to hang out almost daily, and have been there for each other through thick and thin. When Charles got married, he made me his best man without hesitation. I've gone to him for advice, shared some of the hardest moments of my life with him, and in all honesty, I see him as a brother in ways I've never seen Pete. Pete was still invited to the wedding, of course. He just wasn't part of the wedding party. But when he found out Charles was my best man, he sent me a text saying he was hurt, and then demanded I replace Charles with him. I apologized, but told him I was sticking with Charles. That's when he said if he wasn't my best man, he wasn't coming at all. It didn't stop there. My stepmom called me shortly afterward, furious that I didn't choose Pete. She kept repeating, "You're brothers," as if that alone should settle it. She even said she wouldn't come if Pete wasn't best man and hung up on me. Then my dad texted, telling me to make Pete my best man to keep the peace. And that's when doubt started creeping in. I've always been firm on the idea that my wedding is about me and my fiancé, and we should get to decide who stands by our side. But part of me wonders, am I being selfish? Is it worth sticking to my choice if it risks this kind of drama right before the wedding? I keep coming back to this. Being a best man isn't just a title, it's about the relationship and the history you share. Charles and I have that bond, Pete and I don't. Choosing him just to avoid conflict feels dishonest, like I'd be faking something in one of the most important moments of my life. Still, I can't ignore the family tension. My dad, my stepmom, and Pete are all now implying that my refusal is some sort of personal attack. I don't hate Pete, and I don't think he's a bad person. We're just not close, but to them, that's apparently not a good enough reason. Now I'm stuck wondering if holding my ground makes me the bad guy, or if giving in would make me resentful on my own wedding day. And honestly, neither option feels great. That brings us to our next story. Am I the asshole for choosing my best friend over my stepbrother as my best man? Story 3. Am I the asshole for not waking up a tourist who overslept and missed the day trip she paid for? I'm 21, a Bulgarian tour guide who regularly takes groups to Sicily. On a recent trip, there was this one solo traveler, mid-30s, who made my job a whole lot harder than it needed to be. Our first full day, we had a tour to Etna and Taormina, leaving at 8 a.m. I always make sure everyone knows the schedule. I announce it on the bus the day before, hand out printed itineraries from the travel agency, and give everyone my number so they can call if they forget. That morning, everyone showed up on time, except her. She strolled up 10 minutes late. I let it slide, but reminded everyone that I won't tolerate lateness over 15 minutes unless it's an emergency, and they have to call me if they're running behind. The next day, she was even later, 25 minutes this time. I called her twice with no answer. We were literally about to leave when she came running. The only reason she made it was because the hotel receptionist stopped me to ask about some paperwork, buying her a few more minutes. I gave the group another reminder, wake up on time, and I will not wait for latecomers. That evening, she cornered me and asked if I could make sure to wake her up on time from now on. I told her politely but firmly that I couldn't take responsibility for waking up every guest. That's what alarms are for. She kept insisting, "No, just knock on my door if I'm not out by 8:15, and I kept repeating, "No, that's not part of my job." Fast forward to the day of our Syracuse trip. She didn't show. I waited the 15 minutes I always allow for emergencies, called her twice, no answer, and then we left. About an hour later, she called in a panic, asking where we were. I explained calmly that we'd left on time, she hadn't shown up, and I had called her with no response. She flipped out, accusing me of having one job and cheating her out of the money she paid for the tour. She missed the entire day trip and was still fuming the next day. To make matters worse, she told the other tourists I'd abandoned her and even called my agency, leaving a nasty review. It was incredibly awkward, but I stood by my decision. When we got back, I spoke to my manager right away, worried I'd have to defend myself endlessly. But as soon as I told him what happened, he laughed and said, "Hun, I deleted that nonsense the moment I read it." They even removed the bad review. Honestly, I felt relieved but still annoyed at the whole ordeal. The way I see it, she had multiple reminders, a printed itinerary, my number, and explicit warnings. She was an adult, fully capable of setting an alarm. If I start knocking on doors for one guest, I'd have to do it for everyone, and that's simply not sustainable. But part of me wonders, was I too rigid? Should I have just knocked that morning to avoid the headache? I hate leaving people behind, but at some point, personal responsibility has to kick in. That brings us to our next dilemma. Am I the asshole for letting her miss the trip instead of waking her up? Story 4. Am I the asshole for telling my roommate's friend about my heritage? I'm 21, half Mexican and half Chinese. My parents immigrated to the US before I was born, and they made sure I grew up deeply connected to both cultures. I speak both Spanish and Mandarin, and I grew up eating a mix of traditional Mexican dishes, Chinese cuisine, and even fusion recipes my parents invented. A few nights ago, I was cooking one of those fusion dishes at my apartment. I got stuck on a step, so I called my mom for help. We spoke in Spanish while I was on the phone. My roommate Anne came home with some friends, none of whom I knew were coming over. One of her friends, a guy, came into the kitchen. He said the food smelled amazing and asked what I was making. I explained it was a recipe my parents created to blend their cultures. Then he asked why I had been speaking Spanish earlier, so I told him about my heritage and that I'd grown up speaking both Spanish and Mandarin. He seemed genuinely interested and asked more questions about language, food, and family. We had a nice, casual conversation. The next day, another roommate told me Anne had complained that I was showing off and flirting with her friend. I was shocked. I wasn't flirting, I was answering his questions. I went to talk to Anne, but she brushed me off, saying it was obvious how it looked, and that I should be more mindful when she has friends over. I told her that's pretty hard to do if she doesn't even warn me they're coming. She shot back that she doesn't need my permission to invite people. At that point, I just dropped the conversation because it was going nowhere. Since then, things have been awkward. Anne barely talks to me, and when she does, she's cold. Now I'm second-guessing myself. Was I wrong to share details about my background? Should I have kept it short instead of engaging in a longer conversation? The thing is, I wasn't trying to make it about me. I wasn't bragging. I was literally just answering questions someone asked me, in my own kitchen, in my own home. It wasn't like I cornered the guy to talk about myself. He approached me. And honestly, if Anne feels territorial over her friends, that's her issue, not mine. Still, part of me wonders if I unintentionally embarrassed her by connecting with her friend. I'm proud of my heritage, and I love talking about it when people are genuinely interested. But if that somehow crosses into showing off in her mind, I'm not sure how to handle it without feeling like I'm erasing part of who I am. That brings us to the next moral crossroads. Am I the asshole for having that conversation with her friend? Story 5. Am I the asshole for letting my daughter flaunt her expensive items? I'm 50, my husband is 48, and we have a daughter, Danica, who's 21. She's been fiercely independent since she was a teenager. She started working at 15, and now she juggles a part-time job at a large corporation while pursuing her studies. We're incredibly proud of her work ethic. She manages her own money, insists on contributing to household expenses, and occasionally treats herself to pricier items, always with her own earnings. For example, last year she bought herself a new MacBook when her old one was dying. She also bought a Marc Jacobs bag for work and school. I've never had an issue with her purchases. They're thoughtful, practical, and well within her budget. Recently, we went on a family trip with my brother, his wife, and their 2 kids, Tammy, 20, and Nick, 23. Danica and her cousins aren't super close, but they get along fine. Unlike Danica, neither Tammy nor Nick works. They rely entirely on my brother. On the trip, Danica would occasionally buy drinks or snacks for herself and her cousins. When we went shopping, she picked up a few things for herself and some gifts for her friends. That night at dinner, my sister-in-law told my husband and me that we were spoiling Danica. We explained that Danica earned her own money. That's when she turned to Danica and said if that was the case, she shouldn't be flaunting her purchases in front of her cousins, who don't have the same privileges. Danica apologized politely, saying she didn't mean to flaunt anything, but I could see she was upset. My husband immediately defended her, saying she had nothing to apologize for. I added that she'd been financially independent since she was 15 and we'd never spoiled her. My sister-in-law wouldn't let it go. She claimed we were teaching Danica bad financial habits and that all this money had made her a brat. Danica excused herself, texted us that she'd gone back to the hotel, and when we returned, we found her crying. I called my brother, hoping he'd talk to his wife. But he said Tammy had been complaining that she didn't have what Danica had, especially the new MacBook, and their mom refused to buy her one. It turned out Tammy had been stewing over Danica's independence the whole trip. Now my husband, Danica, and I are getting calls from family members. Some say we're wrong for letting Danica show off, while others support us. Here's the thing, I don't believe Danica was showing off at all. She was living her life, spending her own hard-earned money. Should she have to hide her success just to protect someone else's feelings? Especially when that person has never worked and has had every opportunity to start? I'm torn between being proud of the independent woman my daughter is and being frustrated that we're being painted as bad parents because she doesn't downplay her accomplishments. That brings us to our next dilemma. Am I the asshole for letting my daughter openly enjoy the things she's worked hard for? Story 6. Am I the asshole for asking for my dead sister's ring back after my brother used it to propose? When I was 6, my older sister, she was 17, passed away. I don't remember everything about her, but I remember little things. Her laugh, her painted nails, the posters on her bedroom wall. After she died, my mom put her on this pedestal, like she was an untouchable angel. I barely remember the funeral, just the heavy feeling that stuck with me. When I was about 12, I found a silver ring with a small stone among her things. It wasn't fancy, but it fit me perfectly. I didn't take it as some dramatic act. I just kept it quietly. It became my own little connection to her. I didn't wear it all the time. Mostly I kept it in a box and took it out when I missed her. That ring became the one tangible piece of her I felt was mine. Fast forward to last weekend. My brother, 27, brought his girlfriend to a family lunch, and we all knew he was going to propose. Sure enough, he stood up, gave his heartfelt speech, and then pulled out the ring. My sister's ring. The one I'd kept for 7 years. I froze. His girlfriend was crying, people were clapping, and I just sat there in shock. I looked at my mom, who smiled at me like nothing was wrong. After dinner, I asked her if it was the ring I'd kept, and she said yes. She explained that my brother had asked her and my dad, and they thought it was sweet and symbolic, something my sister would have wanted passed down. I told her, it wasn't yours to give. She brushed me off, saying, it's just a ring, don't be dramatic. But it wasn't just a ring to me. It was my personal link to my sister, something I'd quietly cherished for years. I confronted my brother in private, telling him I wanted it back. At first he laughed, then got defensive. I said that if he refused, I'd tell his girlfriend where the ring came from and let her decide. He accused me of ruining his proposal and making everything about me, like always. My mom pulled me into the kitchen, saying everyone noticed my lack of enthusiasm, and that I'd left halfway through dinner. Yeah, because I was crying in the bathroom. My dad tried to calm things down, but my brother kept calling me selfish, saying I'd been weird about my sister for years. I left early and haven't spoken to any of them since. My mom later called to ask if I was ready to apologize, and when I said no, she hung up. A cousin texted me afterwards saying they agreed with me and that what happened was messed up. Still, I can't shake the feeling I might have handled it badly. It's not even about the value of the ring. It's about how my family acted like my feelings didn't matter. That's where I'm stuck. Am I the asshole for asking for my sister's ring back after my brother used it to propose? Thanks so much for listening all the way through. If you enjoyed these AITA stories, make sure to like the video and subscribe so you won't miss the next batch of drama, dilemmas, and tough calls. I've got plenty more to share, so stick around. See you next time.